Malware is any software intentionally designed to cause damage to a computer, server, client, or computer network. By contrast, software that causes unintentional harm due to some deficiency is typically described as a software bug. A wide variety of malware types exist, including computer viruses, worms, Trojan horses, ransomware, spyware, adware, rogue software, wiper and scareware. Programs are also considered malware if they secretly act against the interests of the computer user. For example, at one point Sony Music compact discs silently installed a rootkit on purchasers' computers with the intention of preventing illicit copying, but which also reported on users' listening habits, and unintentionally created extra security vulnerabilities. A range of antivirus software, firewalls and other strategies are used to help protect against the introduction of malware, to help detect it if it is already present, and to recover from malware-associated malicious activity and attacks. Many early infectious programs, including the first internet worm, were written as experiments or pranks. Today, malware is used by both black hat hackers and governments to steal personal, financial, or business information. Malware is sometimes used broadly against government or corporate websites to gather guarded information, or to disrupt their operation in general. However, malware can be used against individuals to gain information such as personal identification numbers or details, bank or credit card numbers, and passwords. Since the rise of widespread broadband internet access, malicious software has more frequently been designed for profit. Since 2003, the majority of widespread viruses and worms have been designed to take control of users' computers for illicit purposes. Infected, zombie computers can be used to send email spam, to host contraband data such as child pornography, or to engage in distributed denial of service attacks as a form of extortion. Programs designed to monitor users' web browsing, display unsolicited advertisements, or redirect affiliate marketing revenues are called spyware. Spyware programs do not spread like viruses. Instead, they are generally installed by exploiting security holes. They can also be hidden and packaged together with unrelated user-installed software. Ransomware affects an infected computer system in some way, and demands payment to bring it back to its normal state. There are two variations of ransomware, being crypto ransomware and locker ransomware. With the locker ransomware just locking down a computer system without encrypting its contents. Whereas the traditional ransomware is one that locks down a system and encrypts its contents. For example, programs such as CryptoLocker encrypt files securely, and only decrypt them on payment of a substantial sum of money. Some malware is used to generate money by click fraud, making it appear that the computer user has clicked an advertising link on a site, generating a payment from the advertiser. In addition to criminal money-making, malware can be used for sabotage, often for political motives. Stuxnet, for example, was designed to disrupt very specific industrial equipment. There have been politically motivated attacks which spread over and shut down large computer networks, including massive deletion of files and corruption of master boot records, described as computer killing. Such attacks were made on Sony Pictures Entertainment and Saudi Aramco. The best-known types of malware, viruses and worms, are known for the manner in which they spread, rather than any specific types of behavior. A computer virus is software that embeds itself in some other executable software on the target system without the user's knowledge and consent, and when it is run, the virus is spread to other executables. On the other hand, a worm is a standalone malware software that actively transmits itself over a network to infect other computers and can copy itself without infecting files. These definitions lead to the observation that a virus requires the user to run an infected software or operating system for the virus to spread, whereas a worm spreads itself. A computer virus is software usually hidden within another seemingly innocuous program that can produce copies of itself and insert them into other programs or files, and that usually performs a harmful action. Lock screens, or screen lockers, is a type of cyber police ransomware that blocks screens on Windows or Android devices with a false accusation in harvesting illegal content, trying to scare the victims into paying up a fee. GSUT and S-Locker impact Android devices more than other lock screens, with GSUT making up nearly 60% of all Android ransomware detections. A Trojan horse is a harmful program that misrepresents itself to masquerade as a regular, benign program or utility in order to persuade a victim to install it. A Trojan horse usually carries a hidden destructive function that is activated when the application is started. The term is derived from the ancient Greek story of the Trojan horse used to invade the city of Troy by stealth. Trojan horses are generally spread by some form of social engineering, for example, where a user is duped into executing an email attachment disguised to be unsuspicious, or by drive-by download. Although their payload can be anything, many modern forms act as a backdoor, contacting a controller which can then have unauthorized access to the affected computer, potentially installing additional software such as a keylogger to steal confidential information, cryptomining software or adware to generate revenue to the operator of the Trojan. While Trojan horses and backdoors are not easily detectable by themselves, computers may appear to run slower, emit more heat or fan noise due to heavy processor or network usage, as may occur when cryptomining software is installed. Unlike computer viruses and worms, Trojan horses generally do not attempt to inject themselves into other files or otherwise propagate themselves. In spring 2017, Mac users were hit by the new version of Proton Remote Access Trojan trained to extract password data from various sources, such as browser autofill data, the Mac OS keychain, and password vaults. Once malicious software is installed on a system, it is essential that it stays concealed, to avoid detection. Software packages known as rootkits allow this concealment, by modifying the host's operating system so that the malware is hidden from the user. Rootkits can prevent a harmful process from being visible in the system's list of processes, or keep its files from being read. A backdoor is a method of bypassing normal authentication procedures, usually over a connection to a network such as the Internet. Once a system has been compromised, one or more backdoors may be installed in order to allow access in the future, invisibly to the user. The idea has often been suggested that computer manufacturers pre-install backdoors on their systems to provide technical support for customers, but this has never been reliably verified. It was reported in 2014 that U.S. government agencies had been diverting computers purchased by those considered targets to secret workshops where software or hardware permitting remote access by the agency was installed, considered to be among the most productive operations to obtain access to networks around the world. Backdoors may be installed by Trojan horses, worms, implants, or other methods. Malware exploits security defects, security bugs or vulnerabilities, in the design of the operating system, in applications, or in vulnerable versions of browser plugins such as Adobe Flash Player, Adobe Acrobat or Reader, or sometimes even installing new versions of such plugins does not automatically uninstall old versions. Security advisories from plugin providers announce security-related updates. Common vulnerabilities are assigned CVE IDs and listed in the U.S. National Vulnerability Database. Malware authors target bugs, or loopholes, to exploit. A common method is exploitation of a buffer overrun vulnerability, where software designed to store data in a specified region of memory does not prevent more data than the buffer can accommodate being supplied. Malware may provide data that overflows the buffer, with malicious executable code or data after the end. When this payload is accessed, it does what the attacker, not the legitimate software, determines. Early PCs had to be booted from floppy disks. When built-in hard drives became common, the operating system was normally started from them, but it was possible to boot from another boot device if available. It was common to configure the computer to boot from one of these devices when available. Normally none would be available. The user would intentionally insert, say, a CD into the optical drive to boot the computer in some special way. For example, to install an operating system. Even without booting, computers can be configured to execute software on some media as soon as they become available. Malware distributors would trick the user into booting or running from an infected device or medium. For example, a virus could make an infected computer add autorunnable code to any USB stick plugged into it. Anyone who then attached the stick to another computer set to autorun from USB would in turn become infected, and also pass on the infection in the same way. More generally, any device that plugs into a USB port, even lights, fans, speakers, toys, or peripherals such as a digital microscope, can be used to spread malware. Devices can be infected during manufacturing or supply if quality control is inadequate. This form of infection can largely be avoided by setting up computers by default to boot from the internal hard drive, if available, and not to autorun from devices. Intentional booting from another device is always possible by pressing certain keys during boot. Older email software would automatically open HTML email containing potentially malicious JavaScript code. Users may also execute disguised malicious email attachments. In computing, privilege refers to how much a user or program is allowed to modify a system. In poorly designed computer systems, both users and programs can be assigned more privileges than they should have, and malware can take advantage of this. The two ways that malware does this is through overprivileged users and overprivileged code. Some systems allow all users to modify their internal structures, and such users today would be considered overprivileged users. This was the standard operating procedure for early microcomputer and home computer systems, where there was no distinction between an administrator or root and a regular user of the system. In some systems, non-administrator users are overprivileged by design, in the sense that they are allowed to modify internal structures of the system. In some environments, users are overprivileged because they have been inappropriately granted administrator or equivalent status. Some systems allow code executed by a user to access all rights of that user, which is known as overprivileged code. This was also standard operating procedure for early microcomputer and home computer systems. Malware, running as overprivileged code, can use this privilege to subvert the system. Almost all currently popular operating systems, and also many scripting applications, allow code too many privileges. Usually in the sense that when a user executes code, the system allows that code all rights of that user. This makes users vulnerable to malware in the form of email attachments, which may or may not be disguised. As malware attacks become more frequent, attention has begun to shift from viruses and spyware protection to malware protection and programs that have been specifically developed to combat malware. Reboot to restore software is also useful for mitigating malware by rolling back malicious alterations. A specific component of antivirus and anti-malware software, commonly referred to as an on-access or real-time scanner, hooks deep into the operating system's core or kernel and functions in a manner similar to how certain malware itself would attempt to operate, though with the user's informed permission for protecting the system. Anytime the operating system accesses a file, the on-access scanner checks if the file is a legitimate file or not. If the file is identified as malware by the scanner, the access operation will be stopped, the file will be dealt with by the scanner in a predefined way, and the user will be notified. This may have a considerable performance impact on the operating system, though the degree of impact is dependent on how well the scanner was programmed. The goal is to stop any operations the malware may attempt on the system before they occur, including activities which might exploit bugs or trigger unexpected operating system behavior. Anti-malware programs can combat malware in two ways. They can provide real-time protection against the installation of malware software on a computer. This type of malware protection works the same way as that of antivirus protection in that the anti-malware software scans all incoming network data for malware and blocks any threats it comes across. Anti-malware software programs can be used solely for detection and removal of malware software that has already been installed onto a computer. This type of anti-malware software scans the contents of the Windows registry, operating system files, and installed programs on a computer and will provide a list of any threats found, allowing the user to choose which files to delete or keep, or to compare this list to a list of known malware components, removing files that match. Real-time protection from malware works identically to real-time antivirus protection. The software scans disk files at download time, and blocks the activity of components known to represent malware. In some cases, it may also intercept attempts to install startup items or to modify browser settings. Because many malware components are installed as a result of browser exploits or user error, using security software to sandbox browsers can also be effective in helping to restrict any damage done. Examples of Microsoft Windows antivirus and anti-malware software include the optional Microsoft Security Essentials for real-time protection, the Windows Malicious Software Removal Tool Updates on, and Windows Defender. Additionally, several capable antivirus software programs are available for free download from the Internet. Tests found some free programs to be competitive with commercial ones. Microsoft System File Checker can be used to check for and repair corrupted system files. Some viruses disable System Restore and other important Windows tools such as Task Manager and Command Prompt. Many such viruses can be removed by rebooting the computer, entering Windows Safe Mode with networking, and then using System Tools or Microsoft Safety Scanner. Hardware implants can be of any type, so there can be no general way to detect them. Before Internet access became widespread, viruses spread on personal computers by infecting executable programs or boot sectors of floppy disks. By inserting a copy of itself into the machine code instructions in these programs or boot sectors, a virus causes itself to be run whenever the program is run or the disk is booted. The first IBM PC virus in the wild was a virus created in 1986 by the Farooq Alvi brothers in Pakistan. Executable infecting viruses are dependent on users exchanging software or bootable floppies and thumb drives, so they spread rapidly in computer hobbyist circles. The first worms, network-borne infectious programs, originated not on personal computers, but on multitasking Unix systems. Unlike a virus, this worm did not insert itself into other programs. Instead, it exploited security holes in network server programs and started itself running as a separate process. This same behavior is used by today's worms as well. With the rise of the Microsoft Windows platform in the 1990s, and the flexible macros of its applications, it became possible to write infectious code in the macro language of Microsoft Word and similar programs. These macro viruses infect documents and templates rather than applications, but rely on the fact that macros in a Word document are a form of executable code. The notion of a self-reproducing computer program can be traced back to initial theories about the operation of complex automata. John von Neumann showed that in theory a program could reproduce itself. This constituted a plausibility result in computability theory. Fred Cohen experimented with computer viruses and confirmed Neumann's postulate and investigated other properties of malware such as detectability and self-obfuscation using rudimentary encryption. His 1987 doctoral dissertation was on the subject of computer viruses. The combination of cryptographic technology as part of the payload of the virus, exploiting it for attack purposes, was initialized and investigated from the mid-1990s, and includes initial ransomware and evasion ideas.